In this session, we are going to understand the concept of user administration in the SAP system. User administration is one of the basic tasks in R3 security. On any given project, you will work with user IDs on a day-to-day basis. You may end up creating user IDs, or you may end up locking user IDs or unlocking user IDs, or assigning roles to the user IDs, or resetting passwords for users on a daily basis. So user administration is something that you would be doing on any project that you go to. The importance of user ID is such that for logging to any user ID, to log into any system, a user needs to have a user ID, and every user ID has a user master record associated with it. Each user ID is unique in a system, in a client, which means that if you have an ID in one client, doesn't mean that you are automatically you'll be able to log into some other client in the same system. Suppose you have two clients in the system. To log in to both the clients, you need to have your ID in both the clients. The user needs to have the ID in both the clients. So user IDs are client dependent data, which means the user information in a particular client is valid only within that client. The user master record consists of user attributes such as the last name, first name, the roles that are assigned to the user ID, the user group that the user belongs to. All these attributes of a user ID of a user comprises what is called as a user master record in the SAP system. And the tasks that a user is allowed to perform in the system are dictated by the roles that are assigned to the user master record. So unassignment of the roles is also part of the user administration tasks that you will do as a security administrator. As a security administrator, or as a user administrator, you would end up creating or changing user master records. You set the values in the tab pages of the user master record. Values in the tab pages meaning passwords, user groups, the validity date. And as a user administrator, you would have to define and understand or differentiate between the different user types that SAP allows you to create. And then also you can operate and implement mass maintenance in the SAP system, meaning mass maintenance meaning suppose if you want to lock 10 user IDs at one shot, you could do that. And as a user administrator, you may have to do that, such kind of activities on a regular basis. Maybe not on a daily basis, but on a regular basis. Also, you would have to display and archive change documents for authorization assignments. To access and work in the SAP system, a user master record with authorizations is required for any user. If a user does not have a user master record, meaning if he does not have a user ID, the user cannot log into the SAP system. Now, other elements of the user master record, such as the validity date, the roles that are assigned to the user, make it easier for the user to work in the SAP system. The assignment of these authorizations can be controlled individually for each user, but also to an extent using mass maintenance. What it means is that if you want to assign a particular role to say 10 users or 50 users, same role, to mass volume of users, you could do that too. A user master record consists of a username, that is a user ID, and for information such as the user name, password, and the client in which the user ID has been created, the company's address, the user type, the logon language that the user uses, the printer settings like the printer through which he prints or she prints, the rows that are assigned, the validity dates, etc. All these pieces of information make up the user master record. As a user administrator, you would perform certain tasks. You could create a user ID. You can modify user IDs. Modifying could mean you want to change a user group or change the validity date, or you want to assign a role or unassign a role. You could do that. You can just simply display a user master record if you want to. I mean, you don't make any changes, but you can just display the user information. When it's required, you can lock and unlock user IDs. You could do that so that you prevent users from accessing the system on a temporary basis. You can delete the user IDs depending on the company's policy. Like if a user has left the company and you want to delete the user ID, you no longer want that ID to be there in the system, you can delete it. You could also change and reset passwords. Users frequently forget their passwords. They don't remember their passwords, and they ask you to change the password so you could reset the passwords for this user IDs. Copying user IDs. This is another method for creating user IDs. You can clone the user IDs from an existing ID into another ID. So two IDs having the same access. You can also rename a user ID if you want, like if you have by mistake create a user ID with a wrong naming convention, you can rename it if you want. So these are some of the tasks that you could do as part of user administration. Now these tasks we are doing you could do on a one-to-one on one user ID at a time, but some of these tasks you can also do on a mass volume of user IDs. Like for example, you can lock or unlock 10 or 50 or 100 user IDs at a time, or you could delete 10 or 100 user IDs at a time. A user can only log into the SAP system if a user master record with a corresponding password exists. So to log into the system, a user would need a user ID and a password. The scope of the activity of individual users in the SAP system is defined in the user record, in the master record by one or more roles, and is restricted by the assignment of appropriate authorizations. So once the user logs into the system, what he or she can or cannot do depends on what kind of authorizations have been assigned to them. Now you can see here, this is a screen for a diagram for the user master record, and these are the different tab pages in which as a user administrator you will maintain the relevant information for each user. Now you have the address tab in which you maintain the personal data and the communication data. In the logon data tab, you maintain the type of user, the validity period, and the user group. In the defaults tab, you can maintain the start menu, the logon language, the language in which the user can log on and work with, the default printer, the printer to which the user can print his reports by default. You can maintain that printer name and the user master record. Parameters, default values for parameter IDs. We will see all these tabs and understand what they contain in detail. Roles tab, you assign the roles, which the roles dictate what a user can do within the system. Then you have the user groups. the groups that you can assign, the user would belong to. You have the personalization information data that you can assign in the personalization tab, the license data, license information about that user. You can maintain it in license data tab. And we will see these tabs one by one and understand and see how we can make use of the information in those tabs to create a proper user ID and follow the audit requirements. User master records are client specific, meaning if a user ID exists in a client, he or she can only log into that client. If there are any other clients in the system and the IDs don't exist in the other clients, the users cannot log into those clients. So, and user master records are maintained by using the transaction SU01. So if you want to work with one user ID at a time, like for creating user IDs or copying them, deleting them, locking the user IDs, the transaction code that you would use is SU01. Now let us log into the system and execute the transaction SU01 and go through those tabs, address data tab, log on data tab, and the remaining tabs, and see how we can maintain the information in those tabs and create a user ID and the user master record. So to create a user ID, the transaction code is SU01. So as a user administrator in SU01, you can perform certain tasks, right? So you can create a user ID, you can change or modify a user ID, you can display the information user master record, you can delete a user ID by clicking on this drum icon. If you want to make a copy of an existing ID, you can use this option. And you want to lock or unlock a user ID, you can use this lock or unlock option. And here, using this icon, you can change a password. Now you have 7 activities that you can see on the screen, and the 8th one is rename the user ID. That you have to do it using the menus here. So you go to users menu and click on the rename option to rename an existing user ID. So as a user administrator, in the user maintenance, you can perform about 8 tasks on a user ID. And this is one user ID at a time. So let us first go and understand the different tabs in the user ID. So let's go and display the user information, user record, user master record for the user, test user. So when you display the user master record, the first tab that you get is the address data tab. In the address data tab, you only need to maintain the last name field because that is an mandatory field. So the last name is a mandatory field. So you have to, when you create a user ID, on this particular tab, you have to maintain this piece of information. The rest of the fields, the data in these fields are optional. You may want to input it, you don't want to do it, it's up to you. But as a good audit practice, as a good policy, you should maintain as much information as possible for any user. As a good policy, you should at least maintain the last name and the first name, the function, the telecommunication information such as the telephone number and the email ID, so that when needed you can contact that user. And this also is an audit requirement in many places, to maintain as much information about the user as you can in the address data tab. For audit purposes and for following a good user administration policy, you should also maintain information in the fields such as first name, function, department, telephone number, email ID fields. So you maintain as much as information as as much as you can on this address data tab. Now, how will you get this information? Every company, every customer will have his own policy for creating user IDs. So you may have to, you will have to get approvals from the users manager and the business owners before you start creating the user IDs. And whoever requests the ID to be created, they will provide you the user information, such as the last name and the first name, and the roles that need to be assigned in form of by filling up some user request form or in a Word document, or the form could be on the intranet or some other mechanism. But that information will be provided to you by somebody from the business team. But before creating the user ID, you as a security administrator have to get the approvals, the required approvals from the business teams. So once you have the approvals, you can create the user IDs. The next tab in the user master record is the logon data tab. In the logon data tab, you can maintain an alias for the user. You can assign a user group to the user, the validity dates, and also define the type of user this ID could be. It could be a dialog user, communication user, system user, service user, or as a reference user. So you have 5 user types in the SAP system, and this ID could be any one of those. The alias is an alternative ID for an SAP user. An alias can be assigned to a user. This means that 40 characters are available when assigning user names longer than the descriptive names. The user can therefore be identified using either the 12-character user ID or using the alias. The alias is primarily used if users are creating the self-service scenario from internet transactions. In this situation, only the alias specified can be used. So if you want to, the alias field can be used for searching a user ID if you want. So if I say test user, and if I say Subba here, when I type Subba in SU01, my user ID will automatically get displayed. The user group field. The user group for authorization check. To assign the users to a user group, enter the user group here. Now this is required if you want to divide the user maintenance among several user administrators. Only the administrator that has authorization for this particular group can maintain users of this group. If you leave the field empty, the users is not assigned to any group. This means that any user administrator can maintain the user. When you fill in a user group here, you are basically categorizing the user IDs to certain authorization user group. Now the main importance of this, the main purpose of this field is for user administration purposes. Now suppose if I am authorized as a user administrator to work with users belonging to this group, I can only work with those groups. If there are any other user IDs that belong to, let's say, the APA group, as a user administrator, I cannot modify the user IDs that belong to the group APA, user group APA, because I will not be authorized to do that. So this information, the user group, is mainly used for 2 purposes. One is for one is for categorizing the users into groups based on a certain parameter or criteria, such as developers. You want to, in your company, if you want to categorize, understand, to find out how many people are there who are developers, then you can club them into one group. Or if you want to find out how many people belong to some particular region, you can create groups based on regions. So user groups can be used for categorization purposes. The other purpose is for security administration purposes, so that you can differentiate. If you have multiple user administrators, then you can control which user IDs those user administrators can maintain, depending on what group they are authorized to. So the user group field can also be used for authorization purposes. User type. The system proposal is a dialog user. Like you can see, it's selected by default. The other user types can be assigned if special kinds of processing have to be performed. The most validity period. The validity period, you can specify the validity period for the user master records. You would do that because you would want to, suppose if you want to restrict the user to access the system only for a specific period of time, and then you can do this. If you do not want to restrict the validity of the user master record, then you can leave the fields empty. So if you maintain certain dates here, which means that that ID is valid only for during that particular time. For example, in this case, on April 1st, 2007, this user ID will no longer be valid. Meaning, on April 2nd, when the user tries to log into the system will not allow him to do it, because this validity date is going to prevent him from doing it. Because when you define the dates, put in the dates here, you're basically defining from what period till what period the ID is valid. So this is a very good policy, it has a good policy to follow, to have a validity period on every user ID that you create. If you don't put a validity dates here, the IDs become open-ended, meaning they will have access to the system forever. It's a good policy to implement these in the dates in these fields if you have contractors working on the project, because contractors are temporary people who will work for a certain period of time and then leave. But when they leave, as a security administrator, you may not be informed about that the user has left. So if you put a validity date period here, even if you're not informed, after that particular period, the system will anyway prevent anybody from getting into the system by using the ID. So it's a good practice to have this, to use these two fields. You could have different policies for temporary people and permanent people. The other data field, in this field, for each user or user group, you should assign an accounting number which you can choose as required. System usage of that user is settled in the accounting system using this accounting number. Useful accounting numbers, for example, are cost centers, company code, or the user. Now this data, the information in this field is optional. You don't really have to use these two fields if you don't want to. You have 5 user types. Like we saw here, you have 5 user types. The first one is the dialog user type, which is selected by default. Now, the dialog user is a user type for exactly one interactive user, which means anybody who wants to log into the system and execute transaction codes has to be defined as a dialog user. So dialog users log into the system using a user ID and a password and perform tasks by executing transaction codes. During a dialog logon, the system checks whether the password has expired or is initial. The user can change his or her password himself or herself. Multiple dialog logons are checked and where appropriate logged. So using one user ID, you can log in from different terminals if it is allowed. The second type of user ID that we have is the system user ID. Now this user ID is used for background processing and communication within a system, within the same system. Dialog logon is not possible, meaning any user ID that you define as a user system type, you cannot log in to the system using that ID. The system does not check whether the password has expired or is initial. So the password is not, validity of the password is not checked for this type of user ID. Due to a lack of interaction, no request for a change of password occurs. Only the user administrator can change the password. In dialog user, a user can change his or her password, but a system user cannot do that. And multiple logons are permissible for the system type user ID. Another type of user ID that you have is the communication user ID. Now this user ID is like a dialog user ID. This is a service user ID. So you have this is a service user ID, not the communication service user ID. Now this user type is a dialog user available to a larger extent to a larger anonymous group of users. And for these users, you should only assign restricted authorizations. Now during the logon, the system does not check whether the password has expired or is initial, like in case of your system user ID. And only the user administrator can change the password if it is needed for this user type. Like in system user type, the multiple logons are also permissible. Service users are used, for example, for anonymous system access through an ITS service. After individual authentication, an anonymous session begun with a service user can be continued as a person-related session with a dialog user. The next user ID that you have is the reference user ID. Now this user ID is a type for general and non-person related users that allows the assignment of additional and identical authorizations, such as internet users created with transaction SU01. You cannot log onto the system with a reference user ID. You should be very cautious when creating reference user IDs. This is one type of user ID you probably will not create any time. It's very rarely created in special cases where you have to create internet user IDs. The last type of user IDs that we missed, I think, was communication user ID. Communications type user ID. It's user type for dialog-free communication between systems. Now, the difference between communication type user ID and the system type user ID is that system type user ID is for communication within the same system, whereas the communication type user ID is for communication between two different systems. So for such as you'd have to create an RFC user, CUN, or Central User Administration. So you can use the communication user IDs for these for CUA, Central User Administration, and ALE's kind of work. Even with communication user ID, a dialog logon is not possible, which means a communication user ID user cannot log into the system and execute transaction codes. So whether the system checks for expired or initial password depends on the logon method, interactive or not interactive. Due to a lack of interaction, no request for a change of password occurs in communication type user ID. So except for dialog type user ID, password is not asked to be changed. The system will not prompt you to change the password for any other user type except for dialog user type. The next tab in the user master record is the defaults tab. Here in this tab, you can maintain the start menu, the default logon language that the user can log in with, the printers to the default printer to which the user can print, and then you can maintain the time zone. Then you can also maintain the decimal notation and the date format that the user can use by default. Start menu. In this field, you can specify the area menu in which you can choose using the possible entries help. The SAP menu access then only contains the components of this area menu. The area menu is this piece. So once you select the area menu, the user will not see the SAP menu here. You will see whatever is defined in that particular area menu. So let's try. A user needs, suppose if the user needs access to credit management transaction codes to perform his daily work, then you can enter the area menu FRMN as the start menu in the user's data. The SAP menu displays only the transaction codes for the credit management. So it's only for display purposes, it doesn't mean that the user cannot access any other transaction codes. If he has access to, he has the authorizations to do that. Now, how do you change the area menu by default? In the entire system, you can use the transaction SSM2 to do that. So if you want to change the SAP Easy Access menu to something else, you can use that using SSM2. The logon language. The system language when the user logs on. So on the logon screen, the user can choose another language if required. So by default, user will log on to in the language which is specified here. If I specify, let's say ES, which is for Spanish, so user when he logs on, he will see all this menu information and the messages in Spanish. So you can specify the default logon language for the user. Output device is a short name for the printer in the SAP system. So you can specify here, let's say in this case, we have specified LP01, which means the user can, whatever user prints, but default will be printed to this particular printer. Time zone describes the location of an object in relation to its local time. The underlying set of rules describes the time difference between the time zone and the UTC in hours and minutes, and start and end of summertime. So basically, you maintain the time zone for the of the location where the user is located. Now, decimal notation and date format. So you can maintain the decimal notation and the date format, because different countries use different formats. So you would want the user to enter the data in the format which they are used to. So different countries use different formats for numbers and dates, countries, and enter the format usual for your country. The next tab in the user master record is the parameters tab. This tab. As a security administrator, you probably will not maintain it on a regular basis, but you may have to do it once in a while for certain cases. Now, why is this parameter type used? You can use the parameter ID, the tab, to enter a parameter ID using which a field can be filled with default values from the SAP's memory. For example, a user only has authorizations for company code 1000. When a transaction starts, this company code is saved in the memory using the corresponding parameter ID. On all subsequent screens, all fields referencing the company code data element are then automatically filled with the value 1000. So selections, if a set says when you execute a transaction code, and in that transaction, in the selection screen, if there is a field for company code, then you don't have to enter the company code there manually. It will be automatically filled up by the values that you have specified in the parameter ID in the parameter tab, in this tab. A field on a screen is only filled automatically with the value saved under the parameter ID of the data element. If you have explicitly allowed this in the screen painter, so this is basically part of your ABAP development work. The next most important tab that you have is the roles tab. So in the roles tab, you assign the roles that are required for the user to perform his or her day-to-day job. So a role is a set of functions describing a specific work area. In the role, you organize transactions, reports, or web addresses in a user menu. A role can be assigned to any number of users. On the Roles tab, you can use the Possible Entries Help F4 key to display the list of available roles and then select the desired entries from that list. You can enter any number of roles in the table and then restrict their validity using the valid from and valid to columns. If you use the input help for these columns, the system displays the calendar from which you can select the date. So once you have entered the role here, like in the log on data tab, you maintain the validity for period for the user. In the roles tab, you can also maintain the validity period for the role. So if you maintain, let's say, a validity period for a role, which means that after that period, the user would lose authorizations from that particular role. So you could restrict access to the user by specifying the validity period on the roles also. So if the validity period on the role is expired, even if the user is able to log into the system, he or she cannot do anything because he does not have the authorizations to do that because of this validity period. The next tab in the user master records is the profiles tab. So when you create a role, a profile is generated for every role. So when you assign the roles to the user master record, the profiles are automatically associated with the role is automatically assigned in the profiles tab. So for example, you can see here the role names and mentioning that this particular profile is associated with this role. So when you assign the role here in the roles tab, the profile also gets attached to the user ID. On the profiles tab page, you assign manually created authorization profiles and therefore authorizations to users. The generated profiles of the roles assigned to the user are also displayed here. So these are generated profiles, and how do we know it's a generated because profile? All these profiles are generated. How do we know that? It's because of this icon. Okay, so it's not only you can assign roles to the users, you can also assign profiles, manually created profiles to the users by selecting that F4 icon and selecting from the list. So these are the different profiles which SAP provides, and you can create your own profiles also if you want manually and then assign them here directly. Each profile grants the user a number of authorizations. Now, never enter or generated profiles directly on the profiles tab, since the transaction PFERD deletes these assignments if there is no entry for them in the roles tab page. What it means is that you should not, if it's a generated profile, you should not directly enter it here in the profiles tab. If you want the generated profiles to be assigned to the user, then the associated role has to be entered in the roles tab. Now technically you can enter the generated profiles in the profile tab, but when you execute the transaction PFERD, which is for updating the user master records, this assignment goes away. So they never stay. They are not permanent. So you should never assign, or you cannot assign generated profiles directly to the user master record. The generated profile should be assigned through the role in the roles tab. When you assign a role to the user on the roles tab, the profile generated for this role is automatically entered in the profiles tab, and the profiles in the user master record are compared with the roles. Now, SAP system contains predefined profiles such as SAP All. Now, this is a auditable profile, meaning you can go to the profiles tab here in the profiles tab and assign SAP_all here. But in a production system, you should not do that, because SAP All gives complete access to the SAP system, and that should never be given to any user in the production system. So SAP All is a no-no. Never assign this in a production system to anybody, because anybody who has it can work in the SAP system without any restrictions. Now, along with SAP All, you have another profile delivered by SAP called SAP_new. Now this is a composite profile to bridge the differences in releases in case of new or change authorization checks for existing functions, so that your users can continue to work as a normal. Now you should assign this profile to users when you are upgrading the SAP system from one version to another version. So if with every new version SAP introduces a new functionality into the SAP system, so it would introduce new transaction codes, it would introduce new authorization objects, new authorizations for objects. So to manage and to able the users to work without any problems during the upgrade phase, if you assign SAP underscore new to them, whatever differences are there between the current version that is getting upgraded and the higher version, whatever differences are there between these two versions, SAP underscore new will take care of those differences so that the users can keep working without any issues. The groups tab. This tab. Now you can assign user groups to which the user IDs may belong. Now this tab is not fully active. It's not fully actively used. This tab was mainly used when Global User Manager was being used. Now SAP has officially deactivated it. So you basically don't use this tab anymore. The purpose for this tab has been deactivated. The function has been deactivated by the SAP. So you will never use this tab. The personalization tab. In the personalization tab, you can make person related setting using personalization objects. Personalization is available both from the role maintenance and in user maintenance. You can define values here that control the results displayed when programs are called, such as display periods, last 3 months, number of entries, max 50, and so on. So you can maintain personalized information for users in this particular tab. The license data tab. Here you can maintain what license type is being used for the particular user ID. SAP software contains a measurement program with which every system produces information used to determine the payment applicable to the installation. The measurement programs is used exclusively to determine the number of users and the utilized units of SAP products. The results are evaluated in accordance with the contractually agreed conditions. So this piece of information, when you input and you specify here, is used for licensing purposes. So SAP licenses the customers depending on how you have identified this user as per the license agreements between SAP and the customer. So this has to be filled in very carefully. So let's, for example, if it's say this is a basis user ID, you would say there's only basis. So when the customer signs the license agreements with SAP, he would basically say mention how many basis users he may have. So this piece of information will help SAP to find out how many basis users the customer has, and depending on that, SAP can charge the customer. Another example could be multi-client, multi-system. If a user ID, let's say, has to be charged only once, but that ID exists in multiple systems, multiple clients, so you should define that user ID as license data. In the license data tab, you should define that user ID as a multi-client system, so that SAP will charge only once for that user ID. So if you have 10 systems, and for every system, and you have that this particular user ID, let's say in all the 10 systems, and the license contractual user type you have mentioned it, let's say operational or something else, then the SAP will charge the customer 10 times for that user ID. So if you define it as a multi-client system, then SAP only charges once. So you need to be very careful with how you maintain this information. To perform user administration successfully, properly, you need to have access to certain authorization objects as a security administrator or a user administrator. Now, to create or maintain a user master record, you need access to proper access for the object s_user_grp. Now, if you want to assign profiles, then you would need access to s_user_pro. Now, this PRO goes hand in hand with s_user_agr, because you also will be assigning roles. So when you assign the roles, the associated profiles are also attached to the user ID. So if you are assigning roles, you need access to s_user_agr, but you would also need access to s_user_pro. But if you are assigning only manually created profiles or SAP delivered profiles, then you would only probably need s_user_pro. Now, if you want authorization to maintain authorizations, then you need access to s_user_auth. Authorization for transactions that you may assign to the role and for which you can assign authorization to start the transaction in profile generator, you all need access to user_tcd. So if you want to restrict values that system administrator can include in a role or change in a profile generator, then you need access to s_user_val. So the main object as far as security administration is concerned is for user administration is s_user_grp, s_user_pro, s_user_agr, and then s_user_auth. The main one is this s_user_grp. This controls the kind of activities that you can perform in SU01, s_user_grp, like activities meaning creating user IDs or modifying them or deleting user IDs, locking user IDs. All those activities are controlled by s_user_grp. Now, in the next session, we are going to see how to create a user ID.